Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hello, welcome back to the Wild West Tennis Podcast. Today joining us is Leighton Ginn.
Mm-hmm.
That's gin, not like gin.
That's gin, just like the liquor.
Yeah, but wait, didn't you have a gin and something show?
Yeah, my company is called Gin and Topics.
Gin and Topics.
Yeah, to play on the gin and tonics.
Yeah, you had to take advantage of that. Now, was that also was that a tennis? And folks, so you know, this man, he's not a drinker, but he was a tennis journalist with the Desert Sun for nearly 20 years, Leighton?
Yeah, nearly 20 years.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about your gin and topics in a moment. But what I'd like to let the listeners know is that you're one of these guys that you're writing for the Desert Sun, the paper in Palm Springs. Mm-hmm. And here it is. There had been a tennis tournament that was getting some traction. Mm-hmm. And when it moved to what we now know as the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, what was that like for a reporter that you covered sports? You were a sports writer. Mm-hmm.
Right.
What was that like?
Well, it was exciting. You know, here's this gigantic tennis facility. I've never seen anything like that, and there really is nothing like it. You know, there's the Billie Jean King Tennis Center at the U.S. Open, but you know, the tennis stadium by my count is the second largest tennis stadium in the world. When you take a look at the capacity, and it's a beautiful stadium, and you know, it was exciting. You know, I met Charlie and Ray, the guys who owned the tournament, who were running it, and they were just such gracious, really nice guys, and really helped me make the transition because it was really my first time covering major tennis. And so just talking to them, and I learned a lot. I did a lot of research going into it about the history of the tournament. And so when it started, it was just really kind of fun and exciting. And, you know, it was a piece of history. So it was really cool. I think the first official match, I don't remember if it was qualifying or the actual main draw, was Tara Snyder, who is a former U.S. player. I think she's from Kansas. And I just remember I was just talking to her, and she was just a great interview, and she was talking about coming out of the tunnel, and it felt like you're coming into a heavyweight fight or something like that. And I was like, oh wow, that's just really great, and just the way she kind of described it. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was really exciting, and you know, it was a new thing for me. It was a new thing for this area. And you know, I anticipated this was going to be a big deal. And so far, I mean, it has been. It's grown quite a bit, and it was pretty big at the start too.
Yeah, it had been. You might be able to fill in some blanks. It had been maybe at a different, like at a hotel.
It was at the Hyatt Grand Champion, which is just down the road in Indian Wells. Indian Wells is a small little city, and so it was down the road at this nice resort. The first time I went there, I just kind of went there to just kind of soak it in. It was really nice. And lo and behold, who was there but Rod Laver? So the first time I was there was Rod, and Rod was just there. And I don't know if I had actual conversation with him. I think I was a little intimidated at the time. But I got to know Rod pretty well afterwards because he lived in the area for a while. He's since moved to San Diego. But Rod was just the greatest. You know, I'll tell you another story. Is like at one point I was looking in the market for a condo.
Okay.
And there's this one development where they named the streets after the tennis players. And just as a background, Palm Springs, you know, they name streets after celebrities. But this development, they named after, Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, Dinah Shore. Yeah. And so I went to this place and I looked at two condos on Rod Laver Lane. And later that day, I had a telephone interview with Rod Laver. And I said, Rod, you won't believe it. I just had this interview. I mean, I was just looking for condos and at this place. He goes, oh yeah, I heard about that place. And so, you know, it was just kind of a funny little icebreaker for that interview.
Like you serendipitous, it's an icebreaker. But did you end up getting that condo? Is that what you ended up going with?
It was a little too pricey. Rod Laver carries a big price tag that was a little bit out of my reach.
Yeah. You're looking more for Ray Moore, you know, avenue.
No, more like Challenger challenger level.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, kind of what the tournaments Andre played after Brooke Shields.
Yeah, wow. And that was, that one might have been in Vegas, but maybe there was one in Palm Springs. So you have introduction to the legends. You meet Charlie and Ray Moore, and
the greatest guys.
Beg your pardon?
The greatest guys. I love both those guys. Those guys are terrific. Loved the staff. Loved everything they represented. Loved the team and what they wanted to be and how they represented it. And made you just really like tennis. Charlie was the centerpiece of that.
Well, and you should also, fill in the listeners to remember the Breakfast with Charlie.
Oh,
those were great.
Well, yeah.
Or were they?
And manifestly, though, as you might know. No, but yeah, Breakfast with Charlie became Breakfast with Charlie and Ray.
Right.
And so they always did it right before finals weekend or the final Sunday. Correct. And it would just break down ticket sales and everything about the tournament.
Yeah.
And it was just great because, they kind of let you in on the business side of the tournament, and they were pretty open about it, well, as open as, executives will be. I mean, absolutely not everything. But
sure. But it is important for local, I think it's a lot of people, because newspapers aren't as prominent, it is important to the local market, the information that they're providing, ticket sales, and any announcements for maybe next year. Okay, we're going to add additional courts. You name it.
Right.
So for you, particularly as somebody that covered the local market, it may have had more significance than it would for somebody stringing for. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. I mean, if you're interested in the business, then you always got the attendance numbers, and the attendance numbers was kind of exciting because, those attendance numbers were right up there with the Grand Slams, which had several more days than this one in terms of attendance count. So it was kind of exciting to see where we stood with the biggest tournaments in the world, and we weren't very far off at that time. I think a couple years later, maybe after Larry bought the tournament, I think we drew more than both Wimbledon and the French Open, maybe because, we just have more space and our stadium's bigger. So I think for a little time we had bigger attendance numbers than them. But, it was exciting. Every year you were there, you saw how much it grew. You understood the obstacles they had to overcome.
Yeah. Well, speaking of obstacles, I mean, gosh, in 2001, one of the most disappointing spectacles in sport happens.
You're talking about the Williams sisters?
Yeah, that involved.
Yeah, that was
Go ahead.
That was an interesting one, because a lot of weird things happened that day.
Yeah.
Indian Wells sometimes I think gets a little bit worse rap for it than they deserve, to be honest. But and just a lot of things happen. I think the withdrawal happened at the last minute. Yes. And if they would have let them know that there was going to be an issue. Now that's not me knowing what was going on with Venus. So just give people background. There was a semifinal on Thursday night, prime time on ESPN, and we found it 2 minutes right before the match started. And so that's not enough time to get a replacement. So here you are on ESPN prime time with this match. And, because like I said, Indian Wells is a small area. Indian Wells is part of the Coachella Valley or the Palm Springs area.
Sure.
And so that's a big area, but not a huge area. So most of the people are coming in from LA. So there's a lot of people who took time off to come out to watch this match from LA, left work early, made the commute, which could be 2 to 4 hours depending on traffic. They come here, they go to the stadium, and they find out the match got canceled. And so, people were hot about that. And then there's all this rumors about the Williams sisters and Richard.
Because Venus had a knee injury.
That's what was reported.
Yeah. And she was scheduled to play whom that night?
Serena.
Correct.
Right.
And, at that point, they hadn't played a lot. But it just so happened that, they're going to play each other. I don't think it would have been the first time in their pro career.
No. They had played at Wimbledon previously, and so that was one of the rumors was that. So Serena won the U.S. Open in 1999 before Venus, the older sister. Then the rumor was in 2000 when Venus won Wimbledon. Like I said, this is a rumor. I'm not saying it's true or not. I'm just saying this is what circulated. So, but the rumor was that Richard asked Serena to tank that match so Venus could get a title, so her confidence wouldn't be shattered. That was the rumor. So there was this belief, rightly or wrongly, that Richard manipulated who won or who lost, and the way it was going, they figured, oh, it was Serena's time. And so that's why Venus pulled out. And, to feel the suspicion on that a little bit was Venus played the next tournament, which was Miami, and she won Miami.
She did. And I was at her next match. I saw her play that next match.
Right.
And she
won the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So you're pulling out of a match with a knee injury, then you go to Miami and you win. So obviously that kind of spurs that. Having said that, that didn't excuse the way the crowd behaved, booing her the whole time. I truly believe, though, Serena handled it like really great, like a pro. And I was surprised she never returned for however many years it was, 10, 12 years.
14 or 15
years. Or 14, yeah. And because she handled the crowd and they were booing and they were really tough on her, but she won them over at the end at the award ceremony. So I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Much credit to Serena.
And Kim Clijsters, I think, was who she played at.
Yeah,
if I'm
she
not
played
mistaken.
Clijsters. I think it was Clijsters' first big tournament final, I believe.
Sure.
I'm not positive.
Yeah. I mean, later that year, she would lose to Capriati in the French Open final.
Right.
So good things were to come.
Yeah, she played really well. She won the first set. Serena, I mean, there's this negative connotation, but if you kind of sit there and watch the match, under unprecedented circumstances, she came out on top. And that's something I don't think people kind of appreciate. And to me, that's just a real great example of her greatness to kind of win under those kind of circumstances, because very few people, can win under those circumstances or operate. And she did. I mean, mentally, she was one of the toughest players. We all talk about her physical gift. That day, I had so much respect for her, what she did mentally. And you could tell that, she was,
What an opportunity for someone in your position to be able to write about that and convey the facts and from the fiction. You were able.
It was difficult. I mean, obviously, I didn't know everything that went on. I mean, there's only so much you can.
Nobody did.
You can be right. But you cover it the best you can. I hear Charlie and Ray's side. I heard you read about their side. It was unfortunate. My point of view was a little bit different. I mean, I knew it was kind of a tough situation for Serena, and I know it's been said, she's a teenage girl being booed like that, but this is where I think. I watched a lot of college sports. I followed a lot of college sports. I went to Arizona, and college kids get booed like that regularly when they're on the road. And so to me, people thought it was a terrible thing. And to me, general sports, I thought it's, college kids deal with it, and they seem to be fine with it. So, and not to take anything away from Serena, I mean, those are tough situations. That's why home records are so much better than road records. But, people overcome it, and Serena definitely overcame it. I mean, so
well, I don't think it's
yeah. So that was my perspective. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It doesn't take away from the greatness of Serena. I mean, it definitely doesn't, because I have a huge amount of respect for her and everything she put up with. But like I said, I thought Indian Wells got painted a little bit rough on it. I know, people thought Indian Wells was racist. I think that's really kind of unfair. It was an ugly picture, obviously. Richard said certain things were said to him. He was pretty loud that day with boos. I don't know what he said was said to him. If it was during when he walked in and everyone was booing him, I find it hard to believe that's exactly what he heard, because it was so loud that day.
Were you sitting in the press section for the match?
Yeah, so I was
You're
on the other
above.
side of the stadium, so
Yeah.
I wasn't close. So I'm just saying from what I read and how loud it was, I find it hard for him to hear this long statement that he said that was said. But I'm not saying he didn't. Someone acted poorly against him. I want to make that clear. But he said someone said this long thing, and I'm just like, it was really loud. I find it hard to believe that you heard all that. Having said that, I remember when he walked down the steps to get to his seat, he almost went into the crowd because someone said something to him that he heard. So he heard something. What he said, I think he elaborated on it. That's all.
Yeah,
Something to
it's
say.
tough to know because from where you're sitting in the press section, you're all the way across. Which,
Right. I'm just saying from what I saw and what I read. So
yeah.
I'm not saying any of that's fact. It's just
Yeah.
I'm just saying my thoughts and opinions from that.
It basically boiled down to a tough spot. Everyone's in a jam.
Mm-hmm.
The WTA Tour doesn't find out until they only have a limited amount of time to tell the tournament, and it just snowballs. It's like, oh boy. And now, if there's a positive to take away from this, tournaments know how to handle that. Indian Wells, for example, has done things where Tommy Haas will play a set with Pete, or they'll find something. So
Well,
those people that drove from LA aren't gonna have nothing.
Right. I mean, like I said, that night, if they could have been alerted sooner, they would have talked to Sampras was playing the second match that night, and Pete said he would have been ready to play if he knew ahead of time, and
Precisely.
they didn't let him know. He wasn't on the grounds when their match was supposed to start.
Yeah, and that's just the way it could be. And the tours in those days didn't always communicate as well as they would have, could have, should have. And I think people were in a panic. And
well, like I said, it was such last minute. You don't expect that to happen so last minute. Being a night match, there's no match they can move into there, and really nothing would really fit for what people are expecting. But no, I know they've changed policy. I know that if the players withdraw, they ask them to address the crowd to let them know what happened. Because actually, when Serena came back, well, actually, I take that back. They make sure that the crowd knows what happened, and they try to communicate that to the crowds a little bit better. So,
right,
I mean, there's policies to try to alleviate it, but I mean, people are still going to be disappointed, depending on how the withdrawal happens.
Right,
People will still be angry.
They would have had Venus come out and say, "Guys, look, I'm as bummed out as you are. I'm a champion. I know I'm playing better than she is." And she proved it by winning Miami the following week.
Well, I was in that press
like that.
I was in that press conference. It was probably better she didn't address the crowd that night.
Yeah.
She,
you think
in her defense, I thought she didn't think it was a big deal that she withdrew, because that happens. Matches happen. Sometimes an injury, you withdraw. I don't think she kind of comprehended the moment and so she was a little disinterested or whatever. Like she would not have come off well if she wasn't on the court. So I don't think that would have helped that much.
You're of the mind that had they given her the chance to address the audience, the crowd, that would not have been a good move.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
She giggled at one. She kind of giggled at one point, kind of trying to think, why is this a big deal, kind of thing.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, she probably did think, why is this a big deal? It's just withdrawal and stuff like that. But people coming in there, that's not their perspective, and so I think it was vital, because I think not just Venus but other players understood that there's expectations when you're a professional, and when you let people down, you got to address it. And
consequently, Venus never came back to play the event. It was just Serena.
No, she came back. She played. Serena came back, and then the following year, Venus came back.
Oh,
they didn't come back at the same time.
Serena took longer to come back.
Yeah, Venus took a little bit longer.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
enough on that incident. It's interesting because you were there on the grounds, and boy, it must have been for you as a young reporter.
Wasn't
On the
that
one
young.
hand, like pretty interesting and exciting, and I mean, I don't know if you slept that night.
I mean, I don't know. It was weird, definitely. You know, I was kind of like Venus. I didn't think it was that big a deal, to be honest with you. I mean, it became a big deal because they wouldn't come back. But at that time, I was just thinking of it more as, oh, well, this happened and this happened. And, just, I didn't really comprehend how big it was. So I don't think a lot of people did at the time. And like I said, I think it just became bigger and bigger as the years went by and Serena wouldn't play it or Venus. But at the
In your
time, like I
mind,
said,
yeah. After that, I mean, look, that tournament didn't suffer. Player fields.
well, actually it did, Brad, because
In what sense?
not because of that event, but because what happened, I don't know if you remember, this all happened at the same tournament. The market crashed during the tournament.
I did not remember that.
Yeah, and because they brought in Andre because he played that day. The market crashed. He goes, Andre, did you hear about the market? And he broke down all the numbers exactly to the point in the press conference. And so what that did for the tournament was, I don't know if you remember, there was the ISL, the deal they had. So the ISL deal meant they sponsored the tour, and so the at the time they were called the Super 9, now they're called the Masters. So they had the branding. And I think each tournament got $10 million a year for 10 years, so each tournament had $100 million. When that all happened, they lost their $100 million, and I think that was the funding for the tournament. They lost their sponsors because they got into this deal, and so this all happened at the same tournament. This is like the worst tournament ever at Indian Wells. They lost. They would eventually lose sponsors. They would lose their sponsors. They would lose the Williams sisters, and it was just everything hit the fan. And so because of that, it was just a tough time. And then a couple years later, they were talking about maybe they had to sell the tournament to Shanghai, and so they had to really hustle to kind of buy out IMG. And so that was the thing. And so it kind of set a lot of things in motion for the tournament, which eventually pushed out Charlie and Ray, who, were brilliant guys. And Steve Simon, I can't forget Steve Simon, who is now the CEO of the WTA Tour. So, it was really a tough tournament, the worst tournament ever for what is now called the BNP or Indian Wells.
Yeah. Okay. So the financial. I didn't cover the event that year.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was a huge blow for the tournament. Huge.
Wow.
Because then they had to they got Pacific Life to be the sponsor, and that was good, but it was like a discounted rate because they needed something. They needed some financing, and then eventually they had to get people to buy IMG because Mark McCormack was their partner, and he passed away, and Teddy Fortsman, who took over IMG, wanted to sell, and that was Shanghai. And so, it was a difficult time, a difficult period. And this is why I talk about Charlie and Ray as being my favorite guys, and Steve Simon. I keep forgetting Steve, and I apologize, Steve. But, they did a lot to make sure this tournament stayed at Indian Wells. They could have sold at any time and forgotten the headaches. They probably saved a little bit of money, made some money, and put in something else. They did everything they could to keep this tournament here, and so I'm very fond of those guys. I really admire them for what they did, and I think it gets undersold. I mean, as great as the tournament is now, I just hope people don't forget Charlie and Ray and Steve Simon, and I think people take for granted what they really did for the tournament, for this community, and for the sport of tennis. I mean, can you imagine if they lost this tournament, what that would do to American tennis? You wouldn't have any major tournament in the West Coast, in California of all places. You know,
Yeah,
that was
that
a real
ISL
possibility.
deal, boy. And I don't know if that was that Mark McCormick or the God, who's it?
Mark McCormick.
Larry Scott. That
Well, no, Mark McCormick was IMG, and he was the business partner with the tournament. Now,
yeah,
Mark
but I was
McCormick.
thinking, sorry, not Mark Miles was the head of the ATP. Larry
Yeah,
Scott was
right.
involved, I think, in maybe brokering that deal. I don't know. I don't want to point fingers.
No, Larry Scott came after. He was with the WTA,
Yeah.
but no, I mean Larry was a pretty decent commissioner. Obviously, things didn't go too well at the Pac-12, at the Pac-12, but you know, Larry was okay. I mean, I don't think he was terrible. I mean, there was a lot of terrible CEOs for the WTA, but I didn't really consider him one of them. I thought he did a pretty good job for the most part.
Oh, I thought as the CEO of the WTA, Larry Scott was outstanding. He was great.
Yeah. I mean,
Especially
he
the
was.
guy he replaced before him. Just didn't have, Larry had good media relations skills. The guy before did not.
That's not what people in the Pac-12 would say about Larry these days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I heard a lot of stuff about Larry, and he, you know, they couldn't get rid of him soon enough. You know, he just soured on people, and you know, he worked out. It just didn't work out. I mean, I think Larry had a lot of great ideas. Some of them weren't executed, and you know, it just turned out kind of bad, and that's why he's no longer the commissioner of the Pac-12.
I always thought he was very media friendly, but there may have been other problems he had there. Or
Yeah, that's probably it.
yeah, I mean it's a tough one. I mean, and now as we were talking about, it's just this tournament. I think they broke the record. They had, I think, more ticket sales than the U.S. Open last night. Or they had a day session.
Yeah, it was Saturday. Yeah, I saw that. It was Saturday where they had about 60,000, I think.
Unreal.
Which is great. But if I was there, I don't know if I would have been that comfortable with 60,000 people on those grounds. That sounds a little crowded. But
yeah,
I mean, I wasn't there. Yeah.
Well, when was the last time you were there as either a guest or a journalist or a fan?
Actually, I was at the finals last year, so I saw Taylor Fritz win the title over Rafa Nadal, and I know Taylor's dad because Taylor's dad started and coached the junior college here, so that was kind of exciting to see.
Yeah, that was epic because, as you know, it was almost like, oh boy, is he going to even be able to play? I don't know if that was the buzz around the grounds that he almost pulled out.
Which one? They both almost pulled out of that match.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were both beat up.
Rafa had the rib, and Taylor had the ankle situation. And
I mean, it was a quality match, despite both of them being injured and nearly defaulted.
Kidding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had a great match.
I'll tell you this much: I haven't been there since 2015, and you know, if I was to say to any tennis, well, especially a non-tennis person, I'd say that's the place to go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's fun, relaxed. You know, it's got a good vibe. I mean, there's a couple of things they've changed that I'm not crazy about, to be honest. But for the most part, I think it's a fun place to go. And when I have a lot of friends who are tennis fanatics, I tell them, yeah, you should come to Indian Wells. You know, I know the U.S. Open is great, but you know, Indian Wells is pretty darn good too. So
yeah,
I always encourage them to come out.
I think it's a better bang for your buck, Indian Wells, personally. Last thing I'm going to ask you, because I know it's a busy day for both of us, and I know I don't know how carefully you've been following the draw. Any predictions? Who do you think is going to walk away with the hardware this year? And let's start with the women.
Oh boy, I didn't do my research. I got to be honest, right. I haven't been following it this year, but I think.
How about the men? I mean.
Well, with the women, I figure if Iga's still in the draw, she's going to win it. I think. I mean, she's playing really well, and then Carlos Alcazar. I heard he just, you know, he just blitzed the guy he played. So
Yeah.
sounds like he's playing really well. It's his tournament to lose really. So I would probably go with both of them as long as
I'm
they're
going to
healthy.
go with Iga as well because this court plays a lot like a clay court, which is why I also like your Alcaraz pick. So I'm going to stick with your picks. And last thing I wanted to ask you, since you've left the tennis world, what's your thing? What are you doing? What's your gig?
So I'm helping out with it's called the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival. It's the largest documentary and animation film festival on the West Coast. This is the first time I'm working with them, but I was at the very first one they had 12 years ago, and they had Oliver Stone. So it was really impressive. Wow. This year we got a lot of great programming. Like we have simulcasts with Michael Moore. It's the 30th anniversary of Bowling for Columbine. And so we're going to have a showing of that. And then he's going to speak afterwards via, I don't know. It's going to be, it's going to be on our big screen. So he's going to address people and talk about the 30th anniversary. And, it's great because that thing's still relevant today. It's about gun control. And he probably kind of opened a lot of people's eyes with that documentary. Yeah. And then we have one guy named Charlie Fox. He wrote Killing Me Softly. He wrote the Love Boat theme song. He wrote Laverne and Shirley theme song. He has a lot of fun stuff. I think he's going to be great.
Yeah.
We have one from France about Sean Connery playing James Bond. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have the ESPN 30 for 30 doc on Michael Chang, but unfortunately something happened and we're not going to be able to show it. So I was really disappointed because Michael won this tournament 3 times, and he was beloved here. And actually, Jose Higueras coached him. Jose lives here. He married the mayor's daughter. So he's a big person, and having Michael here would have been terrific. I mean, we would have done a lot right now, just trying to promote him with the tennis tournament. But it didn't work out, which is too bad. But we hopefully we'll get a chance with ESPN. They have some great documentaries. I hope we do. And I actually talked to Ken Solomon about maybe the Tennis Channel having some of their documentaries at our festival. So we're working on expanding it, but it's a fun thing. If people are in the Valley, in the Palm Springs area on April 30th to March 30th to April 3rd, stop by. I mean, you'll find some great documentaries. We're going to do a lot of fun things, and and documentaries are kind of the new thing. There's so many great documentaries out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that does sound great. I'd love to see the 30 for 30 of Michael Chang. That would be the top of my list.
Yeah, I wish we had it.
Yeah, it's too bad. Well, hey, Leighton, it's been a real thrill seeing you and chatting again. I hope you don't have to wait this long.
I appreciate you having me on the show and talk a little about AmDocs, and hopefully, if you don't mind, it's www.amdocfilmfest.com. It's a long name, but if you're interested, take a look. Yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah, no, I mean, next time, like, we can get more into that, because I didn't mean to say save it for next time. I said you can say it again if you want.
Oh, gotcha. No, yeah, absolutely. So hopefully by then we'll have some more stuff, and we'll get some more deals with some more tennis content.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, Leighton. Always good to see you, pal. And
great to see you, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great. And remember, folks, you can subscribe to QualityShot Tennis. This has been a great day. And hey, if you're in the desert still, right?
I'm still in the desert. I'm about 2 or 3 blocks from the stadium now.
Yeah, I thought I heard something in the background. I thought it might have been I don't know, either like lightning or maybe, I don't know, like the applause, but you must be.
It might be the blowers from the gardeners.
That's what it is. All right, buddy.
That might be it.
Take it easy, dude.
All right. Thanks a lot, Brad.
You're welcome, Leighton. Bye-bye.
Bye.